At 43 years old, I never imagined that a simple gathering could change my life so drastically. Let me introduce myself. I'm Virginia. Until recently, I thought I had everything under control. I've been married to Kent for 16 years. We have a good relationship, no kids, successful careers, and a stable life. Perhaps our routine had become a bit monotonous, but I didn't give it much thought until that night. The night that changed everything. It was a typical Saturday, and my sister, Anne, was hosting a family dinner at her house to celebrate her eldest son Mason's 23rd birthday. Mason has always been charming, intelligent, and mature for his age. We've shared a special bond since he was little. He's my favorite nephew, and I'm his confidant. Since I don't have children of my own, Mason fills that void in my life. As we gathered around the table, the atmosphere was filled with laughter and warmth. The dinner was delicious, the wine flowed, and everyone was having a great time. Kent, my husband, felt a bit too comfortable. Kent has a habit of overindulging in wine at family gatherings. He's not an alcoholic, but he tends to overdo it on these occasions. By the end of the night, he could barely stand. "Virginia, I think I need some help getting to the car," Kent murmured, his gaze glassy. I sighed, familiar with this ritual. We managed to get Kent into the car with Mason's help. His snores mixed with the sound of the engine as we set off. During the 25-minute drive home, Mason and I talked about his studies and his dreams for the future. I couldn't help but feel proud and amazed at the man he was becoming. Once we got home, we worked together again to get Kent into bed. We removed his shoes gently, and Mason waited by the bedroom door, as if not wanting to invade our privacy. "Thanks for your help, Mason," I said as I exited the room, closing the door behind me. "No problem, Aunt Virginia. You know you can always count on me," he replied with an intense smile. We headed to the kitchen, and as I poured a glass of water, I noticed Mason seemed nervous, as if he wanted to say something but couldn't bring himself to do it. "Are you okay, dear? You seem a bit tense," I asked gently, concerned. Mason took a long sip of water before responding. "Aunt Virginia, the truth is, there's something I'd like to talk to you about. Do you have a moment?" His serious tone alarmed me slightly. "Of course, Mason. You know you can tell me anything. What's going on?" He ran a hand through his hair, a nervous habit he'd had since he was a child. "It's complicated. There's a woman." My heart sank. My dear Mason was in love. "Oh, sweetheart, that's wonderful. Why are you so nervous? Doesn't she feel the same way?" Mason let out a long sigh before adding, "I wish it were that simple, Aunt Virginia. The problem is, she's much older than me. Much older. And she's married." I felt like a bucket of cold water had been poured over me. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Mason, I don't know what to say. This is a very delicate situation. You're sure about your feelings?" He nodded firmly. "I've never been more sure of anything in my life, Aunt Virginia. I love her like I've never loved anyone before. But I know it's wrong. She's married. I could destroy a marriage, a family. I know it, Aunt Virginia. I've been struggling with these feelings for months, but I can't hold them back anymore. I need her to know." I felt a mix of compassion and concern for my nephew. I remembered how intense feelings could be at his age, how everything seemed absolute. "Mason, I understand that what you're feeling is very strong, but you need to think about the consequences. What will happen if you tell her? Have you considered how this will affect the entire family?" Mason remained silent for a moment, as if gathering the courage to say something more. Then he looked up at me, his eyes filled with an intensity that made me shiver. "Aunt Virginia, the woman I'm in love with is you." The world stopped in that instant. I felt like the ground had disappeared beneath my feet, and I was falling into an endless abyss. This couldn't be true. "Mason, what are you saying? This is wrong. I'm your aunt. I'm married to your uncle, and we're 31 years apart. This can't happen." I tried to sound firm, but I could hear the tremor in my voice. Mason took a step closer to me, his eyes filled with an emotion I didn't want to acknowledge. "I know it sounds crazy, Aunt Virginia, but please believe me. I've tried to fight this. I've gone out with other girls, tried to forget you, but it doesn't work. My feelings for you are stronger than anything else." His hand reached out as if to touch my face, but stopped midway. I was paralyzed, unable to move or form rational thoughts. "Mason, you have to understand that this can't happen. We're family. I'm old enough to be your mother." "I know, Aunt Virginia," he murmured, his voice barely above a whisper. "But I can't help how I feel." I took a deep breath, trying to regain some semblance of control. "Mason, this is wrong. You need to go. We need to forget this conversation ever happened." But he didn't move. Instead, he stepped closer, eliminating almost all the distance between us. I could smell the faint scent of wine mixed with his cologne and feel the warmth of his body. "Please, Aunt Virginia," he begged softly. Before I could react, he leaned in and kissed me. His lips were warm, soft, and decisive. For a moment, I stood still, unable to respond. Then, to my horror and shame, I found myself responding to the kiss. It was as if a dam inside me had broken, releasing all the emotions I had been suppressing. The passion that I thought was long gone came rushing back. I pulled him closer, my hands tangling in his hair. I don't know how long the kiss lasted. It could have been seconds or an eternity. When we finally pulled apart, we were both breathless. The gravity of what had just happened hit me like a freight train. "Oh my God, what have we done?" I whispered, filled with horror, while Mason looked at me with a mix of confusion and sincerity. "Aunt Virginia, what happened was an expression of what I feel deeply," he said, his voice filled with conviction. I took a deep breath, trying to maintain my calm. "Mason, I understand that your feelings are real, but this can't happen again. It was a mistake. We need to forget about it and move on." He looked at me with an intensity that made me pause. "Aunt Virginia, I know this scares you, but what happened wasn't just a fleeting moment. It was something we both felt at that moment." I sighed, searching for the right words. "Mason, your emotions are strong, but this is wrong. We're family, and this could cause a lot of harm. We need to reflect on this and understand that even though it was a moment of confusion, we can't let it affect our lives and those around us." He nodded silently, as if trying to accept what I was saying. "I'm sorry, Aunt Virginia. I never wanted to put you in a difficult situation." I offered him a gentle smile, trying to lighten the tension. "Thank you for understanding, Mason. You're an incredible person, and I know you'll find love and happiness with someone who shares your path appropriately." He took a step back, giving me space to breathe. His expression reflected both sadness and comprehension. "I understand, Aunt Virginia. I'll do my best to get over this, even though it won't be easy." After a moment of silence, Mason took another step back, allowing me to breathe. His expression showed both sadness and understanding. "I get it, Aunt Virginia. I'll do my best to move on, even though it won't be easy." With a heavy heart, we decided that Mason would move out. It was a painful goodbye, filled with tears and promises to stay in touch. But we both knew it was the right thing to do. For both of us, and for Kent. As I watched Mason drive away, I felt a mix of sadness and relief. Sadness for the love we had lost, but relief that we had finally made the right decision. I turned to Kent, who had been watching the scene with a look of confusion on his face. "Virginia, what's going on?" he asked, his voice filled with concern. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for the conversation that was to come. "Kent, there's something I need to tell you," I said, my voice trembling slightly. "About Mason and me." And so I told him everything. The truth about our feelings, about our secret moment, and about our decision to end it. It was a difficult conversation, filled with tears and anger. But in the end, Kent forgave me, and we began the slow process of rebuilding our marriage. Looking back on that day, I realized it was a turning point in my life. A day that started out simple, but turned into something unforgettable. It taught me about the complexities of love, the strength of forgiveness, and the power of honesty. And though the journey was painful, it ultimately led me to a place of greater understanding and self-discovery.